You're like, look at kiss
Can
my
you kiss your
son.
tie? On tie
I
TV?
can kiss my son. Jaden, come on.
Are you okay?
God, this is ridiculous.
They're both bisexual. They do weird things in their house, and young men have left their house screaming to get away from them in their mentorship.
I don't want to be this character anymore.
Who wants to even see a movie about with some stereotypical characters? What's the always talking about keep it real? We have 25 years of keeping it real and being real and all that. And you really see that's reflected in the movies that they made. The characters are trying to be reflective of, you know, people in society. And the stereotype, especially some stereotype successful, that's gone. I ain't seen no stereotypical that was successful since.
We are fighting those same evils today. In America, in the United Kingdom, across the globe. And we need to be clear, shamelessness is not and will never be a superpower. It is the mark of a villain. Kidnapping children is not what great nations do.
For 30 years, Will Smith was untouchable. $9 billion at the box office. Studios bending over backwards to keep him happy. Award shows rolling out the red carpet. The media treating him like the perfect family man who had figured out the secret to life. And for 30 years, if you had questions, if something felt off, you kept your mouth shut. Because that's how Hollywood works. Not out of loyalty, not out of friendship, out of money. But then two men decided they were done staying quiet. Not bitter rivals, not nobodies looking for attention. Jim Carrey and Eddie Murphy, two of the most important figures in the history of comedy, started saying things out loud that the industry had spent decades trying to bury. And once they did, a lot of other things started rising to the surface. Today we're going to go through all of it, the verified facts, the documented controversies, and, clearly labeled, the allegations that have been circulating for years and deserve to be examined. You can decide what to do with the information. Let's get into it. On March 27, 2022, Will Smith walked onto the Oscars stage and slapped Chris Rock on live television in front of millions of viewers worldwide. What happened next was, in many ways, more disturbing than the slap itself. Hollywood gave him a standing ovation. The same industry that lectures the public about violence, accountability, and doing better gave a standing ovation to a man who had just committed assault on live television. Why? Because Will Smith made those people rich. And when someone makes you that kind of money, you protect them. That's the machine. Jim Carrey watched all of it, and he didn't stay quiet.
I was sickened. I was sickened by the standing ovation. I felt like Hollywood is just spineless, en masse. And it really felt like, oh, this is a really clear indication that we're not the cool club anymore.
Spineless en masse. From one of the most respected voices in the industry. That's not a throwaway comment, that's a verdict. And Carrey didn't stop at criticizing the room. He went deeper, straight into the psychology of Will Smith himself. Jim Carrey said something fascinating about what he believed was really going on with Will Smith that night. And the more you think about it, the more it explains not just the slap, but the entire arc of Will Smith's public life. Carrey called it the avatar problem. The idea is this. Will Smith spent 30 years building a character, the Fresh Prince, the family man, the protector, the guy who only makes uplifting movies. And somewhere along the way, that character became more real to him than he himself was. It showed me that there were characters being played everywhere, that as an actor you play characters, and then if you go deep enough into those characters, you realize that your own character is pretty thin to begin with. When Chris Rock made that joke about Jada, Carrey argued it wasn't really about Jada. It was about the avatar. Someone had pulled back the curtain, and Will Smith's instinct, 30 years of protecting that image, kicked in. He couldn't let the character be exposed, even on live television, even in front of the world. Will has something going on inside him that's frustrated. I wish him the best. I don't have anything against Will Smith. That last line matters. Carrey wasn't going after Will Smith personally. He was dissecting a pattern, a system that allows people to build these kinds of images and then protects them when the image starts to crack. Now, if Carrey was the philosopher, Eddie Murphy was the executioner. Eddie Murphy doesn't do award shows. He said it himself. Being in a room full of famous people all dressed up performing for a trophy is one of the most hollow feelings imaginable. He walked out of the 2007 Oscars after losing Best Supporting Actor for Dreamgirls. Didn't sit around playing the gracious loser for the cameras, just left. So when Eddie Murphy showed up at the 81st Golden Globes to accept the Cecil B. DeMille Lifetime Achievement Award, people paid attention, because this man does not show up for nothing. And then he delivered what might be the most precisely targeted line in recent award show history.
Pay your taxes. Mind your business. And keep Will Smith's wife's name mouth!
The room went crazy. And later, when asked if it was just a joke, Murphy clarified, it wasn't just a punchline, it was a point. About toxic masculinity, about the way Will Smith had positioned himself, about what he had done on that stage. When one of the architects of modern comedy shows up specifically to say something like that, you pay attention. To really understand what both Carrey and Murphy were reacting to, you have to understand red table talk. Because if Will Smith's Oscar slap was the explosion, red table talk was the years of pressure building underneath it. When Jada Pinkett Smith admitted on the show that she had been in what she called an entanglement with singer August Alsina while she and Will were separated, Will sat there as the long-suffering, forgiving husband.
You and I were going through a very difficult time.
Yeah.
And we decided...
I was done with your ass.
Yeah, you kicked me to the curb.
I was done with you.
Yeah.
Marriages have that, though.
The world made it into a meme. But what Carrey and Murphy both pointed out, in different ways, was that this whole thing was a calculated narrative move. By being the one who forgives on camera, Will Smith positioned himself as the hero of his own scandal. All the other rumors, all the questions that had been floating around about his private life, suddenly buried under the wave of sympathy generated by that interview. That's not authenticity, that's brand management. And it's the kind of move that only works when an industry is actively protecting you. Now here is where we need to be precise about language, because what follows involves a mix of documented facts and unverified claims that have been publicly circulating for years. We will be clear about which is which. Documented fact. In 1993, actress Janet Hubert was replaced on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air after a contract dispute over pay. The industry narrative that followed branded her as difficult and unprofessional. In a reunion special years later, Hubert sat beside Will Smith and described what that label had done to her.
You know, words can kill. I lost everything. Reputation, everything. And I understand you were able to move forward, but you know those words, calling a black woman difficult in Hollywood is the kiss of death. It's the kiss of death, and it's hard enough being a dark-skinned black woman in this business.
Whether Will Smith was the primary driver of that narrative or a participant in a broader machine, that reunion made one thing clear. Someone's career was destroyed, and the industry protected its asset. Documented fact. During the filming of Men in Black 3 in New York City in 2012, Will Smith demanded production rent a 53-foot double-decker trailer unit costing approximately $2 million, parked in a residential neighborhood in Soho. It blocked traffic, generated complaints from local businesses and residents, and Smith refused to move it. This was widely reported at the time. That's not a crime, but it's a data point about a man who had been told for 30 years that the rules didn't apply to him. Now, the unverified. An individual named Brother Bilal, who has claimed publicly to have worked as an assistant in Will Smith's circle, has alleged that he walked in on Will Smith and actor Dwayne Martin in a compromising situation. These claims have circulated online for years. They are unverified. Will Smith has not publicly responded to them directly. We present them as allegations only. Similarly, artist and activist Jaguar Wright, who was one of the earliest public voices to raise concerns about Diddy before that story broke widely, has alleged that Will and Jada Smith engage in disturbing behavior in their home and that young men who came to them for mentorship allegedly left in distress. Again, these are allegations. They are unverified. But given Wright's track record on other public figures, they are allegations that have been taken seriously by a significant number of people. And there is the claim, made publicly before her passing by actress Alexis Arquette, that Will Smith's first marriage to Cherie Zampino ended because she allegedly caught him in a compromising situation with his then-manager Benny Medina. This is an unverified claim from a single source. We present it as such. None of these are presented here as fact. They are presented because when two comedy legends of the stature of Jim Carrey and Eddie Murphy publicly question the image Will Smith has constructed, these are the kinds of stories that start getting attention, and people deserve to know they exist. After everything, the slap, the backlash, the comments from Carrey and Murphy, Will Smith released a film called Emancipation. It flopped. The awards attention that Smith had spent decades reliably receiving was basically non-existent. And the industry, the same machine that protected him for 30 years, quietly moved him to arm's length. Not because of moral conviction, because, as Jim Carrey put it, Hollywood is spineless en masse, and supporting Will Smith had become bad business.
He doesn't want the hassle. I'd announced this morning that I was suing Will for $200 million because that video is going to be there forever. It's going to be ubiquitous. You know, that insult is going to last a very long time.
If it was me, I'd have announced this morning I was suing Will for $200 million. That video is going to be there forever. That insult is going to last a very long time. The $9 billion man. The guy who was too big to fail. Discovering there's a limit, not to how much bad behavior the industry will tolerate, but to how much bad behavior they can financially justify. That's not justice, but it might be the only accountability Hollywood actually understands. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Jim Carrey and Eddie Murphy didn't speak out because they had a vendetta. They spoke out because they've spent their careers watching this industry reward image over character, protect profit over principle, and silence anyone who asks the wrong questions. Will Smith may be the most visible example of that system right now, but he's not the only one. The verified facts alone paint a troubling picture. The unverified allegations, and we've been clear about which is which, add layers that deserve scrutiny, not silence. What do you think is really going on? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time.